This is a list of important publications in philosophy, organized by field. Some reasons why a particular publication might be regarded as important. Topic creator: a publication that created a new topic. Breakthrough: a publication that changed scientific knowledge significantly. Influence: a publication which has significantly influenced the world or has had a massive impact on the teaching of philosophy. Historical philosophical texts: European and Islamic philosophy equals ancient philosophy equals Parmenides, On Nature, Plato, Protagoras, Plato, Cratylus, Plato, Phaedrus, Plato, Symposium, Plato, Meno, Plato, Euthyphro, Plato, Apology, Plato, Crito, Plato, Phaedo, Plato, Gorgias, Plato, The Republic, Plato, Timaeus, Plato, Parmenides, Aristotle, Organon, Aristotle, Physics, Aristotle, Metaphysics, Aristotle, On the Soul, Aristotle, Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle, Politics, Aristotle, Rhetoric, Aristotle, Poetics, Lucretius, On the Nature of Things, Marcus Aurelius, Meditations, Plotinus, Enneads, equals medieval philosophy equals Augustine and of Hippo, Confessions, c. AD 397, Augustine and of Hippo, The City of God, early 5th century, Boethius, Consolation of Philosophy, c. 500, Avicenna, The Book of Healing, Avicenna, Proof of the Truthful, Maimonides, Guide for the Perplexed, Maimonides, Mishnah Torah, Yehuda Halevi, Khazari, Saadia Gaon, Emunoth V'Idioth, Al-Ghazali, The Incoherence of the Philosophers, Averroes, The Incoherence of the Incoherents, Thomas Aquinas, Summa Contra Gentiles, c. 1260, Thomas Aquinas, Summa Theologiae, Anselm, Proslogion, equals early modern philosophy equals Desiderius Erasmus, The Praise of Folly, 1509, printed 1511, Niccolo Machiavelli, The Prince, 1513, printed 1532, Sir Francis Bacon, Novum Organum, 1620, Hugo Grotius, De Iure Belliac Pacis, 1625, René Descartes, Discourse on Method, 1637, René Descartes, Meditations on First Philosophy, 1641, Thomas Hobbes, Leviathan, 1651, Blaise Pascal, Pensées, 1670, Baruch Spinoza, Ethics, 1677, Baruch Spinoza, Tractatus Theologico-Politicus, 1677, John Locke, Two Treatises of Government, 1689, John Locke, An Essay Concerning Human Understanding, 1689, Gottfried Leibniz, Discourse on Metaphysics, 1686, Gottfried Leibniz, New Essays Concerning Human Understanding, 1704, printed 1765, Gottfried Leibniz, Theodicee, 1710, Gottfried Leibniz, Monadology, 1714, printed 1720, George Berkeley, Treatise Concerning the Principles of Human Knowledge, 1710, David Hume, A Treatise of Human Nature, 1738 to 1740, David Hume, An Inquiry Concerning Human Understanding, 1748, David Hume, An Inquiry Concerning the Principles of Morals, 1751, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Discourse on the Arts and Sciences, 1750, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Emile, or, On Education, 1762, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, The Social Contract, 1762, Adam Smith, The Theory of Moral Sentiments, 1759, Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations, 1776. Immanuel Kant, Critique of Pure Reason, 1781. Immanuel Kant, Groundwork of the Metaphysic of Morals, 1785. Immanuel Kant, Critique of Practical Reason, 1788. Jeremy Bentham, An Introduction to the Principles of Morals and Legislation, 1789. Immanuel Kant, Critique of Judgment, 1790. Mary Wollstonecraft, A Vindication of the Rights of Women, 1792. Johann Gottlieb Fichte, Foundations of the Science of Knowledge, 1794. Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, Phenomenology of Spirit, 1807. Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, Science of Logic, 1812–1817. Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, The Philosophy of Right, 1820. Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, The Philosophy of History, printed 1837. Arthur Schopenhauer, The World as Will and Representation, 1819–1859. Soren Kierkegaard, Either, or, 1843. Soren Kierkegaard, Fear and Trembling, 1843. Soren Kierkegaard, The Concept of Anxiety, 1844. Max Stirner, The Ego and Its Own, 1844. Karl Marx, The Communist Manifesto, 1848. Karl Marx, Das Kapital, 1867–1894. John Stuart Mill, On Liberty, 1859. John Stuart Mill, Utilitarianism, 1861–1863. John Stuart Mill, Harriet Taylor Mill, The Subjection of Women, 1869. Henry Sidgwick, The Methods of Ethics, 1874. Friedrich Nietzsche, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, 1883–1891. Friedrich Nietzsche, Beyond Good and Evil, 1886. Friedrich Nietzsche, On the Genealogy of Morals, 1887. Henry Bergson, Matter and Memory, 1896. Asian philosophy equals Indian philosophy equals the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God, Samya School, Isvaraksna, Sankhyakarika, Nyaya School, Aksapada Gautama, Nyaya Sutras, Vaisheshika School, Kannada, Vaisheshika Sutra, Yoga School, Patanjali, Yoga Sutras, Swami Swatamarama, Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Vedanta School, Vyasa, Brahma Sutras, equals Chinese philosophy equals Zhou Dynasty, Kongzi, Analects, likely written later by followers. Kongzi, 5 classics, compiled. Sunzi, Art of War, Laozi, Tao Te Ching, Warring States, Mengzi, the Mengzi, Han Fei, the Han Fizi, Song Dynasty, Zhou Dunyi, the Taiji Tusho, Zhuxi, 4 books, compiled. Zhuxi, Reflections on Things at Hand, 1175, equals Japanese philosophy equals Pre-Meiji Buddhism, Kukai, Attaining Enlightenment in This Very Existence, 817, Honen, One-Sheet Document, 1212, Shinrin, Kyogyoshinsho, 1224, Dogen Zenji, Shobo Genzo, 1231–1253, Hakuane Kaku, Wild Ivy, Early Modern, Ziami Motokiyo, Style and Flower, Approx. 1400 AD, Miyamoto Musashi, The Book of Five Rings, Approx. 1600 AD, Contemporary Philosophical Texts, Phenomenology and Existentialism, Edmund Husserl, Logical Investigations, 1900–1901, Edmund Husserl, Ideas Pertaining to a Pure Phenomenology and to a Phenomenological Philosophy, 1913, Martin Heidegger, Being and Time, 1927, Edmund Husserl, Cartesian Meditations. 1931. Albert Camus. Myth of Sisyphus. 1942. Jean-Paul Sartre. Being and Nothingness. 1943. Maurice Merleau-Ponty. Phenomenology of Perception. 1945. Simone de Beauvoir. The Second Sex. 1949. Jean-Paul Sartre. Critique of Dialectical Reason. 1960. Hermeneutics and Deconstruction. Hans-Georg Gadamer. Truth and Method. 1960. Paul Ricoeur. Freud and Philosophy. An Essay on Interpretation. 1965. Jacques Derrida. Of Grammatology. 1967. Structuralism and Post-Structuralism. Michel Foucault. The Order of Things. 1966. Gilles Deleuze. Difference and Repetition. 1968. Gilles Deleuze and Félix Guattari. Capitalism and Schizophrenia. 1972–1980. Luce Irigaray. Speculum of the Other Woman. 1974. Michel Foucault. Discipline and Punish. 1975. Critical Theory and Marxism. Georg Lukács. History and Class Consciousness. 1923. Herbert Marcuse. Reason and Revolution. 1941. Max Horkheimer and Theodor Adorno. Dialectic of Enlightenment. 1944. Herbert Marcuse. Eros and Civilization. 1945. Louis Althusser. Reading Capital. 1965. Theodor Adorno. Negative Dialectics. 1966. Jürgen Habermas. Theory of Communicative Action. 1981. Alain Badiou. Being an Event. 1988. Epistemology. Bertrand Russell. The Problems of Philosophy. 1912. G. E. Moore. A Defense of Common Sense. 1925. Edmund Gettier. Is Justified True Belief Knowledge? 1963. Richard Rorty. Philosophy and the Mirror of Nature. 1979. Roderick Chisholm. A Theory of Knowing. Alvin Goldman. Epistemology and Cognition. John McDowell. Mind and World. Susan Jark. Evidence and Inquiry. Lawrence Bonjour. The Structure of Empirical Knowledge. Stephen Stitch. The Fragmentation of Reason. Timothy Williamson. Knowledge and Its Limits. Keith Jarose. The Case for Contextualism. Jason Stanley. Knowledge and Practical Interest. Hilary Cornblythe. Knowledge and Its Place in Nature. Jonathan Kavanvig. The Value of Knowledge and the Pursuit of Understanding. David K. Lewis. Elusive Knowledge. Willard Van Orman Quine. Epistemology Naturalized. Peter Unger. Ignorance. Metaphysics. John Dewey. Experience in Nature. 1929. William James. Pragmatism. G. E. Moore. The Refutation of Idealism. 1903. Ludwig Wittgenstein. Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus. A. K. A. The Tractatus. Alfred North Whitehead. Process and Reality. A. J. Eyre. Language, Truth, and Logic. Rudolf Carnap. Empiricism, Semantics, and Ontology. D. M. Armstrong. Universals and Scientific Realism. W. V. O. Quine. Two Dogmas of Empiricism. W. V. O. Quine. On What There Is. Saul Kripke. Naming and Necessity. Derek Parfit. Reasons and Persons. David Kellogg Lewis. On the Plurality of Worlds. John McDowell. Mind and World. Timothy Williamson. Modal Logic as Metaphysics. Stephen Mumford. Dispositions. Theodore Sider. Writing the Book of the World. David Chalmers. Constructing the World. Philosophy of Biology. Elliot Sober. The Nature of Selection. Erwin Schrödinger. What is Life? The Physical Aspect of the Living Cell. 1945. Ruth Garrett Millikan. Language, Thought, and other biological categories. Daniel C. Dennett. Darwin's Dangerous Idea. Philosophy of Chemistry. J. Van Brakel. Philosophy of Chemistry. Leuven University Press. 2000. Philosophy of Mind. David Chalmers. The Conscious Mind and the Character of Consciousness. Daniel Dennett. Consciousness Explained. Thomas Nagel. What is it like to be a bat? Hilary Putnam. The Meaning of Meaning. Gilbert Ryle. The Concept of Mind. 1949. Wilfrid Sellers. Empiricism and the Philosophy of Mind. 1956. John Searle. Intentionality. Roger Penrose. The Emperor's New Mind. Ruth Millikan. Language, Thought, and Other Biological Categories. Jerry Fodor. The Language of Thought. Jerry Fodor. The Modularity of Mind. Andy Clark. Supersizing the Mind. Taylor Birch. Anti-Individualism and the Mental. Paul Churchland. Eliminative Materialism and Propositional Attitudes. Stephen Stitch. From Folk Psychology to Cognitive Science. David K. Lewis. An Argument for the Identity Theory. Philosophy of Physics. Hans Reichenbach. The Philosophy of Space and Time. John Stuart Bell. On the Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen Paradox. 1964. Philosophy of Psychology. William James. The Principles of Psychology. Donald Davidson. The Very Idea of a Conceptual Scheme. Philosophy of Religion. Alvin Plantinga. God and Other Minds. 1967. Alvin Plantinga. Is Belief in God Properly Basic? 1981. Richard Swinburne. The Existence of God. 1979. William Lane Craig. The Kalam Cosmological Argument. 1979. J. L. Mackie. The Miracle of Theism. 1982. Dewey Zephaniah Phillips. Religion Without Explanation. William Rowe. The Evidential Argument from Evil. A Second Look. 1996. Philosophy of Science. Carl Pearson. The Grammar of Science. 1892. Nelson Goodman. Fact, Fiction, and Forecast. 1954. Karl Popper. The Logic of Scientific Discovery. 1959. Thomas Samuel Kuhn. The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. 1962. Hans Reichenbach. The Rise of Scientific Philosophy. Paul Feyerabend. Against Method. Outline of an Anarchistic Theory of Knowledge. 1975. David K. Lewis. How to Define Theoretical Terms. 1970. Bas C. Van Fraasen. The Scientific Image. 1980. Larry Lorden. The Demise of the Demarcation Problem. 1983. Ethics and Value Theory. Aesthetics R. G. Collingwood. The Principles of Art. Nelson Goodman. Languages of Art. An Approach to a Theory of Symbols. 1968. Arthur C. Danto. After the End of Art. Theodore Adorno. Aesthetic Theory. Ethics G. E. M. Anscombe. Modern Moral Philosophy. Philippa Foot. Virtues and Vices and Natural Goodness. David Gauthier. Morals by Agreement. Alan Gelworth. Reason and Morality. Alan Gibbard. Thinking How to Live. Susan Hurley. Natural Reasons. Shelley Kagan. The Limits of Morality. Christine Korsgaard. The Sources of Normativity. John McDowell. Values as Secondary Qualities. Alistair MacIntyre. After Virtue. J. L. Mackie. Ethics. Inventing Right and Wrong. G. E. Moore. Principia Ethica. Martha Nussbaum. The Fragility of Goodness. Derek Parfit. Reasons and Persons. Derek Parfit. On What Matters. Peter Railton. Facts, Values, and Norms. W. D. Ross. The Right and the Good. Thomas M. Scanlon. What We Owe to Each Other. Samuel Scheffler. The Rejection of Consequentialism. Peter Singer. Practical Ethics. Michael A. Smith. The Moral Problem. Bernard Williams. Ethics and the Limits of Philosophy. Meta-ethics P. F. Strawson. Freedom and Resentment. Bioethics Paul Ramsey. The Patient as a Person. Paul Ramsey. Fabricated Man. Judith Jarvis Thompson. A Defense of Abortion. Business Ethics Tibor R. Macon. The Morality of Business. A Profession for Human Wealth Care. 2007. Identity Judith Butler. Performative Acts and Gender Constitution. 1988. Edward Said. Orientalism. Social Philosophy. Philosophy of Economics Kenneth Arrow. Social Choice and Individual Values. Ludwig von Mises. The Ultimate Foundation of Economic Science. Elizabeth S. Anderson. Value in Ethics and Economics. Philosophy of Education B. F. Skinner. Walden 2. John Dewey. Democracy and Education. Paulo Freire. Pedagogy of the Oppressed. Philosophy of History R. G. Collingwood. The Idea of History. Philosophy of Law John Finnis. Natural Law and Natural Rights. H. L. A. Hart. The Concept of Law. 1994. Lon L. Fuller. The Morality of Law. Ronald Dworkin. Law's Empire. Political Philosophy Karl Popper. The Open Society and Its Enemies. John Rawls. A Theory of Justice. 1971. Robert Nozick. Anarchy, State, and Utopia. Isaiah Berlin. Two Concepts of Liberty. Logic, Language, and Mathematics. Logic and Philosophy of Logic Charles Sanders Peirce. How to Make Our Ideas Clear. Gottlob Frege. Begriffsschrift. Bertrand Russell and Alfred North Whitehead. Principia Mathematica. 1910–1913. Kurt Gödel. On Formally Undecidable Propositions of Principia Mathematica and Related Systems. 1931. Saul Kripke. Semantical Considerations on Modal Logic. Alfred Tarski. The Concept of Truth. Donald Davidson. Truth and Meaning. Philosophy of Language Gottlob Frege. Sense and Reference. Bertrand Russell. On Denoting. Ludwig Wittgenstein. Philosophical Investigations. Willard van Orman Quine. Word in Object. J. L. Austin. A Plea for Excuses. J. L. Austin. How to Do Things with Words. Saul Kripke. Naming and Necessity. H. P. Grice. Logic and Conversation. Michael Dummett. Frege. Philosophy of Language. Robert Brandim. Making It Explicit. David K. Lewis. General Semantics. David Chalmers. Two-dimensional Semantics. Philosophy of Mathematics Alfred North Whitehead and Bertrand Russell. Principia Mathematica. Paul Benacerraf. What Numbers Could Not Be. Paul Benacerraf. Mathematical Truth. Paul Benacerraf and Hilary Putnam. Philosophy of Mathematics. Selected Readings. George Boulos. Logic. Logic and Logic. Penelope Maddy. Second Philosophy. Hartreefield. Without Numbers. Chinese and Japanese Thought. Feng Yulan. A History of Chinese Philosophy. 1934. Feng Yulan. New Rational Philosophy. 1939. Kitaro Nishida. An Inquiry into the Good. 1911. Kitaro Nishida. From the Acting to the Seeing. 1923–27. Suzuki Daisetsu Teitero. An Introduction to Zen Buddhism. 1934. Nishitani Keiji. Religion and Nothingness. 1961. See also. List of years in philosophy. Notes. Irvin. Andrew David. Bertrand Russell. Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Further reading. What are the modern classics? The Baruch Poll of Great Philosophy in the 20th Century. Douglas P. Lackey. Philosophical Forum 30. 4. 329–346. 1999. American Philosophical Association. Epistemology Research Guide. Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, Annotated Bibliography on Analysis. Contemporary Philosophy of Mind. An Annotated Bibliography. London Philosophy Study Guide.